What's up, guys? I will try to get through this video in the best way I can. Um, so I thought I would come on this morning and do a little WrestleMania review. Did my thoughts on this year's WrestleMania and the good side and my good points and bad points of the show. So night one wasn't too bad. I feel like night one was a better night this year, which is kind of a bit of a reverse on last year, in which night two seemed like the better night. Looking at the matches on WrestleMania night one, obviously we had Jey Uso, obviously defeating Gunther to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. I don't have a problem with that. I just hope that the WWE have really done a kind of invest in Jey Uso and give him the lengthy title reign that he actually deserves. I hope this isn't going to be one of those kind of title reigns that's ended after only a few months. Obviously, I do feel sorry for Gunther because this is the second time in a year, the second time in a row, the second year in a row, should I say, that he's actually been dethroned at WrestleMania. He was obviously dethroned by Sami Zayn last year for the Intercontinental Championship. This year he's been dethroned by Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship with some help from Jimmy. In the big match for the Viking Raiders and the New Day did win that match to become the new tag champs. Obviously a big night for them. Obviously, really, I think I knew before the show though that the New Day were gonna win that match. Um, Obviously, we had Tiffany Stratton retaining the women's undisputed championship, and then Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair did win the Rumble, but wasn't successful in her WrestleMania match. Kind of reminds me of 2022, in which Ronda Rousey did win the Women's Royal Rumble, but wasn't actually successful in her WrestleMania match with Charlotte Flair. She ended up winning the women's title in the following in the Backlash pay per view, the following month in May. And obviously this is a big time for Tiffany. The fact that she's kind of emerged from WrestleMania still as the undisputed women's champion, obviously big deal for her. Obviously for me. Night one wasn't too bad. The United States championship match was pretty good. I think we all knew that Jacob Vartu was probably going to be winning that match against LA Knight. I don't think that really came as too much of a surprise for anyone, to be honest, that he sort of defeated LA Knight for the Undisputed Championship. For me, the WrestleMania, obviously the main event, obviously Roman Punk Rollins, obviously a really big moment there, obviously with Paul Heyman screwing CM Punk and Roman Reigns and helping Seth Rollins win. That means that Seth Rollins has now become a Paul Heyman guy, and I didn't think I'd ever be saying that. I didn't think Seth Rollins was one of those people that would ever actually become a Paul Heyman guy, but it seems that he has now done that. Obviously, what will happen with Roman Reigns now? Obviously, where do we go from here? What do we do with Roman? Is this gonna lead to a feud between Roman and Seth? I don't know. I'm presuming it will at some point. It's all very interesting. So night two of WrestleMania, a few big moments. Obviously, we saw Io Sky retaining the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. I can't believe that both Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton did retain their women's titles. I thought one of them was going to lose, but I didn't know which. But obviously, both of them did retain. We've got a new Intercontinental Champion, Dominic Mysterio, emerging from WrestleMania victorious, winning the Fatal 4-Way match in which he defeated Penta, Braun Breaker, and Finn Balor to become the new Intercontinental Champion. I didn't expect that. I hold my hands up and admit I didn't expect Dominic Mysterio, or should I say, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, to emerge from WrestleMania with the Intercontinental Championship. I actually had Penta down as winning that match, to be honest. Obviously not a good night, not a good show. But, obviously we did get the WrestleMania debuts of both Rey Fenix and Penta. Obviously Rey Fenix, obviously stepping in for Rey Mysterio, who was injured on SmackDown. and had to be taken out of that match, and he was replaced by Rey Fenix, who did lose to El Grande Americano, and obviously Penta then lost on night 2 of WrestleMania, obviously unsuccessful in his bid to win the Intercontinental Championship. Obviously a big moment for Randy Orton. Obviously, it was his open challenge. I mean, obviously, it ended up being Joe Hendry that came out and obviously lost to Randy Orton. I mean, I wasn't too bothered by that. I mean, this was a match that was kind of sort of put together quite last minute by WWE. Because obviously, Kevin Owens had to, be removed, be taken out of that match due to suffering his neck injury, and obviously, which looks like it's going to keep him out for possibly, it'll be up to a year before he's back in action. There's even reports, suggesting that he could miss WrestleMania next year as well. Hopefully, that's not the case, but we just don't know yet for sure for how long he's going to be out for. Um, but it is looking likely to be at least 6 months, 6 to 12 months is what Kevin Owens has previously said. I mean, obviously, a good, good night for Randy. Obviously, also a good night for Lyra. Her women's tag team partner was revealed as the returning Becky Lynch. Now, I mean, obviously, I don't think this came as too much of a surprise because there had been reports that came out before night 2 of WrestleMania that Becky Lynch was in Vegas and was potentially going to be replacing Bayley as Lyra's tag partner. And obviously, they were successful in beating Liv and Raquel Rodriguez for the women's tag team championships. Obviously, a big night for Drew McIntyre as he defeated Damian Priest. To be honest, I wasn't really into that match. Like, I didn't really. No, I wasn't bothered about that match. That wasn't really a match that I was looking forward to or I was excited about at WrestleMania. I don't know if there were really that many people who were genuinely excited about the fact that Damian Priest was going to be facing Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. It wasn't a bad match, but it wasn't really my favorite match of the WrestleMania night. Night 1, 2 cards. I just don't think it wasn't a match I was invested in, to be honest. Obviously I wasn't a big fan of the AJ Logan match. I think that was a bit of a ball fest, to be honest. It wasn't, it was a very lackluster match, to be honest. I feel like it wasn't that great. Um, it was probably my least favorite match of the night 2 card. I think it would have been, you know, I think it's interesting, I mean, obviously we saw Logan win, obviously it's another WrestleMania win for Logan. You always kind of feel like Logan is never going to lose at WrestleMania. He's always going to win at, he's won, I think, about 4 WrestleManias in a row now. There's no stopping him. But the big talking point though was Cody Rhodes has lost his undisputed championship. He was dethroned by John Cena in the main event of night 2. John Cena has broken Ric Flair's record and is now a 17-time world champion. Obviously, this is unbelievable. Like, I mean, I wasn't, to be honest, obviously the fact that Jey Uso had beaten Gunther, I kind of felt like that maybe was, I kind of felt like that sort of meant that Cody Rhodes wasn't going to be losing his undisputed championship to Cena. But I honestly, I honestly didn't think that Cody Rhodes and Gunther would both lose their titles at WrestleMania. I honestly didn't see that happening. I knew that either one of them would, but I wasn't sure which one it was going to be. I wasn't confident that Jey Uso was going to beat Gunther. I kind of felt like maybe Gunther would retain and Cody Rhodes would lose his championship. But then I kind of changed my mind a little bit at one, at one point, and I was thinking, well, maybe Gunther will win and Cody will lose. I was never 100% certain on how that on what way that was going to go. But I don't have a problem with the match in itself. Um, I don't particularly have a problem with the fact that Gunther with the fact that John Cena won that match against Cody. I don't have a problem with that. You know, I mean, I didn't really. I mean, as I said, I don't have a problem with the Joe Hendry moment as well. I think it was kind of. I mean, there was the four main people I was thinking of it being was Solo Sikoa, possibly Nick Holdis. I was thinking they were going down that route when Miro was on my at the top of my list. Um, but I didn't have Joe Hendry up there. I thought maybe if they wanted to really kind of try and drive that little bit of a wow factor, they would maybe bring out Joe Hendry, and they did. Um, I mean, obviously, well, the big news of the weekend is that obviously WWE have acquired AAA, which is obviously the Mexican promotion. So quite interesting there. We are going to see AAA NXT Worlds Collide. I'm looking forward to that. That's in, I think, June, or July. I mean, obviously, you look at, the fact that, the whole Randy Orton match. I mean, as I said, it was something that was obviously thrown together, at very kind of last minute due to the fact that Kevin Owens had to be taken out of that match due to his neck injury. They'd had to kind of, they probably didn't really have any plans for who was actually going to replace Randy, who was actually going to replace Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. I think had this been a situation where Kevin Owens had actually gone out injured, possibly around about January February time, they obviously they probably would have had a little bit more time to sort of set up a new storyline and new opponent for Randy Orton for WrestleMania. But obviously, due to the fact that it was only it was kind of very last minute, there wasn't a lot of time for WWE to really set up a new opponent for Randy Orton for WrestleMania, which that's why they did this kind of open challenge thing, which was of course answered by Joe Hendry, um, which I didn't have a problem with that. I wasn't bothered about it or pissed off about it. I know some people probably were. I have seen a lot of people saying they feel like it should have been Jeff Hardy rather than Joe Hendry. I mean, I think that would have obviously broken the roof if Jeff Hardy had come out, but I mean, at least I mean it was nice for Joe Hendry to kind of get that sort of WrestleMania moment, though I suppose. Um, I mean, I don't know how I do kind of feel sorry for Bailey, the fact that she was kind of taken out of that match with this kind of what this kind of with this fake injury, so that they could obviously give Becky Lynch that WrestleMania pop. Like, I mean, I'm glad that obviously Liv and Raquel lost, and I am happy that Becky Lynch is back. I think we've missed. I have missed Becky Lynch. Obviously, she's been out. Obviously, she's been on a sabbatical for about a year now. And obviously, there is a little bit of history there with Becky and Liv. Liv believed that she'd retired Becky, but Becky was obviously only out on the sabbatical. Really good to see Becky back. Is Becky gonna be the next one in line for the women's title match against Io Sky? I don't know. I don't even know what brand Becky Lynch is going to be on. I'm assuming that Becky Lynch is going to be on Raw. Because obviously Charlotte's on SmackDown. It's like, why would you have... Well, no, I don't know. I mean, maybe they could have Becky on SmackDown and maybe go after Tiffany. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see what happens. Um, do I think we could get Miro on either Raw or SmackDown this week? We could. We could potentially get Miro. Maybe Miro this week. I'm not saying that we definitely are going to get Miro on Raw tonight or SmackDown on Friday. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really surprised about the fact that it wasn't Malachi Black. As we all know that Malachi Black's debut is being, scheduled, looks like it's scheduled for this week's episode of Friday Night SmackDown. So it kind of makes sense that it wasn't him that came out and challenged Randy. Um, I mean, to be honest, I think it would have been interesting if it was Miro, but I guess you have to wait a little bit longer for his debut. Maybe it is going to be this week. I just don't know. Um, I mean, for me, WrestleMania wasn't terrible. I mean, it was pretty decent. There was some pretty decent matches. It wasn't all bad. I mean, there were some matches that I just really wasn't interested in or wasn't bothered about too much, to be honest. But yeah, I would give WrestleMania a 7.5 out of 10. That's why I mean, I feel like I can't. I just feel like I can't really give it any higher than that. A 7.5 out of 10. I don't know if that's actually less or higher than what I rated WrestleMania 40. I imagine I probably I don't know if I did a rating for WrestleMania 40, but I probably would rate WrestleMania 40, especially night two of WrestleMania 40, way higher than I would have rated this year's night two of WrestleMania. This year's night two of WrestleMania just didn't do it. Just didn't do it for me. I mean, I did enjoy the main event match. Cena. We knew that there was going to be some dirty tactics in that match from John Cena. You know, I think it's like, what do they do with Cody now? And it's like, how long are they going to have John Cena hold the world title for? Are they going to have John Cena hold the world title all the way until the end of the year? Are they going to have him lose the title before the end of the year? I don't know. This is one of those things that no one really knows at the moment. Is how they're going to do this. Are they going to have him, hold the title right up until the end of the year, or is he going to drop the title before then? It all remains to be seen. As I said, hopefully Jey Uso gets a decent title reign. Hopefully this isn't going to be a fluke and he isn't just going to drop the title after a few months. I would be very annoyed if that happened. But we'll see what happens anyway. So that is my WrestleMania review. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll see you for another one maybe this afternoon if I'm a little bit more awake. To be honest, I'm exhausted after, I actually stayed up to watch the whole of WrestleMania Night 2, and I just feel like, man, why did they do that? I've woken up this morning feeling absolutely exhausted, like genuinely exhausted. Obviously, I think it was worth it. At least I got to see it, and obviously, that is another WrestleMania in the books, done, dusted. Next up, Raw tonight. Who do we see? Do we see any debuts? Do we see any returns? I don't know. I mean, the thing is, you look at the Raw on Netflix show the last few years, like the Raw after WrestleMania the last few years. The Raw, for me, the last few years, the Raw after WrestleMania hasn't been that exciting. It hasn't been, it hasn't lived up to the hype. I feel like the Raw after WrestleMania has sort of lost that hype a little bit. People are not that excited for it anymore. And I feel like the WWE really need to do something to try to reignite that excitement for the Raw after WrestleMania. Try to reignite that hype for the Raw after WrestleMania, because that hype has been lost. That excitement has been lost over the past few years. And WWE really need to try and bring that hype and excitement back for the Raw after WrestleMania. Because the Raw after WrestleMania was always meant to be one of the biggest shows of the year. But the last few years, it just hasn't felt like that. It's just felt like any other episode of Raw. It hasn't been, it hasn't been one of those episodes. It's one of those episodes of Raw that is supposed to stand out, and it hasn't done that. It's just not been great. And I hope that this year's Raw after WrestleMania will be actually better than the past few years. Hopefully, we will actually have a lot of positive things to say about the Raw after WrestleMania tonight. I don't know. Um, I think John Cena still, I think John Cena will be on Raw tonight. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but we'll see what happens anyway. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all for another one soon. Bye bye.